Hello, everyone. A very logical day to all of you. So, let's start with the discussion of the editorial. The first editorial of the Indian Express newspaper, January 21st. Yes. And as always, we'll be discussing the article. We'll be coming up with a few words. We'll discuss the main idea. And now, you do one thing today that before we come to the main idea, while we are discussing, try making a few notes of the point mentioned or the point that you find important in a particular paragraph. So you should have at least 3 to 4 or 5 points also you can get. Write them down, and then when we come up with the main idea, we get the central idea there, and then just check whether you are able to identify, extract the main point from the passage or no. Right, because see, what you actually need to do is when you are doing the RCs, the reading comprehension also for your test, you should be able to extract the major idea, the opinion that the author has conveyed. And this is an exercise to understand the reading comprehension also, how to attempt those and how to come to accurate answers, right? So this will be a practice for you too. Come on, let us see now. So shining the light, 21st January, the first editorial of the Indian Express. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, especially when it streams into black boxes closed for long. A very generic statement that the author has started by building up the background. The Supreme Court Collegium's decision to reiterate its recommendation on the appointment of 5 advocates as High Court judges, and it's going public with the reasons for both its reiteration and the government's objections on Thursday, is therefore an important moment. Right? So, what is important? The decision of the Supreme Court for the reiteration and also mentioning the government's objection. Right? If you remember, we had done this part on I think the 17th or 18th of this month only in the previous in this week. And yes, you'll get names also, and then you'll remember if you have been following the this recording. No, you'll get to know, or you'll be able to recall. Let's see, the process for appointments and transfers of judges of the Supreme Court and the High Courts is one of the system's dark areas. So, this process is a dark area. So, more transparency, more public reasoning in this process is much needed. So, now even if you do not understand the meaning of the word dark area, so you can understand this word transparency. So, more transparency is needed. It is also to be hoped that the light of reason will illuminate the way for the appointment of India's first openly gay judge on the name of Saurabh Kirpal, first recommended by the SC Collegium on November 11, 2021. So the Collegium had recommended this person, right, who is a first openly gay judge. Now the Collegium is giving the reason. Why? Because of, let us see what. The Collegium has refuted the government's objections regarding his sexual orientation by saying the decisions of the Constitution Bench of this court have established a constitutional position that every individual is entitled to maintain their own dignity and individuality based on sexual orientation. That means every person, no matter whatever his orientation is, has the right to maintain his dignity. And his appointment will add value to the bench of the Delhi High Court and provide inclusion and diversity. That is India's apex court, hearteningly moving the needle on fundamental human rights and freedoms, including the liberty to make sexual choices. That means this part of the sentence, the author says that yes, the SC has done something very good. हार्टनिंगली मूविंग द नीडल का मतलब होता है नीडल है जो समय का कांटा है दैट इज मूविंग टुवर्ड्स building this again. So, including the liberty to make the sexual choices, and yet that cannot be the end of this particular story. And yet, को circle कर देते हैं because see, these are the words that actually come up with a little deviation. So everything is very good. The collegium has decided to open up going public, that is right, with a reason. So the transparency was needed, otherwise it was a dark area. The process of the system of appointing the judges was not known to the people. It is coming up with this a little bit of transparency, and it has named this person, Mr. Saurabh Kirpal, also as a judge in the Delhi High Court, and has they have actually recommended, no, they have refuted the government's objections regarding all this, coming up with the reasoning of that, see, what does the constitution say? And therefore, we are going to appoint him, or we have appointed him the judge. Right? So now the last two, three lines are coming up with the author's take on this. So the author says that yes, the apex court, that is the highest court, that is the Supreme Court, has done or taken a very commendable step. Right? But yet, that cannot be the end of the particular story. That means something else also is to be done, or something else is also included in this story. Now, the collegium's disclosure comes when the exchange between the government and the court has seemed increasingly testy. अब author बोलता है कि आखिर ये कदम एससी ने उठाया कब? So when there was a lot of what do you say, not hostility as such, but yes, this is called testy, na? That was ill-tempered, bad-tempered. ठीक है, दोनों को एक दूसरे के actions पसंद नहीं आ रहे थे. Both of them, the executive and the judiciary, they were talking against each other maybe. Let's see, or raising questions or disapproving of the actions. तो वो testy हो जाता है थोड़ा सा. You don't like, or you raise objections. That will be the simple meaning of it, right? So raising objections on the other's action. When this situation appeared, only then the collegium actually disclosed, or it went public. Now, even though the Supreme Court has been seen to be much too generous in giving the executive the benefit of the doubt in crucial cases, a confrontation of sorts has been building between the two on the matter of judicial appointments. If you remember, on the 18th of January, I think so, we did this article, right? If those who have not gone through that recording, kindly go through that. You will be able to understand all this better. Because see, this is what happens, no? All the things related, you will be able to recall. हर 4 दिन में या 5 दिन में कुछ ना कुछ उसी चीज से related वापस से आ जाएगा editorial में. So then you will be able to get some knowledge about, yes, see, this is what is going on. So a confrontation of sorts has been building between the two on the matter of judicial appointments. Statements by Union Law Minister Kiren Rijiju, reinforced by Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar's interventions, questioning the doctrine of basic structure, they have bolstered the impression that the government wishes to undermine the judicial primacy in appointments. So that means it is building up this impression that the government has to interfere or wants to interfere or be or have a say. उस वाले passage में उस article में था कि they wanted a say in the appointment of the judges. ठीक है, if you go back, you will get a few good words there. So the government wishes to undermine. Undermine means to weaken. Weaken what? The judicial primacy in the appointments. But the person, the Supreme Court, the judiciary has the power to appoint the judges. उस पावर में भी जो लॉ मिनिस्टर थे किरेन रिजिजू and the vice president Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar, right, they wanted to intervene. They questioned about the basic structure of this. Right. Now, in that context, the collegium's decision on Thursday to go public is a pushback. Right. इसका मतलब पहले ऑब्जेक्शन रेज किए यूनियन लॉ मिनिस्टर ने and the vice president ने, and then the court decided, okay, we'll go public. So that means उनके कहने पर कोर्ट ने ऐसा किया. इसका मतलब कोर्ट एक कदम पीछे चला गया. कन्फ्रंटेशन नहीं था, एक कदम पीछे गया वो. An unelected institution speaking back to the elected institution is valuable in its own right in a system of checks and balances. Right? So, whatever the Supreme Court would have said, it is correct, it is right, because an unelected institution, when it speaks back to the elected institution, it is valuable. Right? They are being appointed on merit. This is valuable in its own right. Why? Because the judiciary has to keep a check on the executive also, or on the government also, or on all the things that, see, everything falls in line according to the law. So, this unelected institution, speaking back to the election institution, is valuable in its own right in a system of checks and balances, but the court would be doing itself a great disservice if it were to let that be or be seen to be its only reason. Now, it would be unfortunate if the court's move towards greater openness remains merely an opportune counterstrike. Right, opportune, unfortunate. I have marked these words, but I'll tell you why a little later. But it would be unfortunate. समझ में आ सकता है आपको. It is a very simple word. If the court's move towards greater openness remains merely an opportune counter strike, इसका मतलब अगर ये सिर्फ मौके के हिसाब से चल रहा है, तो फिर ये सही बात नहीं होगी. It must become a part of its institutional process. ठीक है, it is not just a one time matter. It should be taken into the system only. For it to be so, the SE must not stop at the disclosure of its reasons for a few names out of many. It must make public its recommendation and its reasoned response to government objections on all the names. Right? So it has gone public with dealing with only one name, and gave a reasoning also in the very first paragraph that say, according to the constitution, everybody has a fundamental right. Right? Now, here the author says that, say, the SC should not stop on only coming up with the reasoning of one person or just a few persons. Right? It should actually come up with the reasoned response on all the names. जिसके ऊपर जिन जिन नाम के ऊपर ऑब्जेक्शन उठाया था गवर्नमेंट ने, उन सबका रीजन देना होगा कोर्ट को, सिर्फ एक दो का नहीं. तो सही होगा कि ठीक है, यू आर कमिंग अप विद रीजन रिस्पॉन्स on all the names. It had put in place such a process of transparency in 2017, only to discontinue it in 2019. It must say also why it did not reiterate some of the names the government rejected. That means it should also come up with a reason. Why did you not give the reason for not mentioning or not reiterating the names? Why it changed its own mind on some of the names that it rejected and the government sent back for its positive reconsideration. In other words, even as Thursday's move to go public is welcome, it is evidently selective. The work of completing it and imbuing it with the sheen of fairness remains to be done by the court. Again, the last part of the paragraph says that yes, whatever the court has done, it is very good. It is a welcome step taken by the Supreme Court, but it needs to continue doing so. The work remains to be done by the court. It has to be fair and it needs to be completed. I hope you have understood this. Let us come up with the main ideas. See, what I've done today is I've taken a few phrases or half sentences from the paragraph only so that the main idea is to be formed. I hope you have written down these. So, decision of going public with the reasons for its reiteration and the government's objection is an important moment. Right. So this was very important. Then India's apex court hearteningly moving the needle on fundamental human rights and freedom, where if you remember in the first paragraph, in the last 2, 3 lines, I had put up the plus signs that according to the author, this is a positive move. Yet I had circled that cannot be the end of this particular story. That means there is still more to come. Next paragraph we had done was exchange between the government and court has seemed increasingly testy. Testy, as I said, raising objections on every small thing. वो हो जाता है testy. The impression that the government wishes to undermine judicial primacy in appointments That was about what had happened when I mentioned that, okay, see, on the 18th of January also we had an article related to all this was what the Union Law Minister had said, Mr. Kiran Rijiju, and what the Vice President, Mr. Dhankar, had said. Right? They had questioned the basic structure of the this judiciary. So, this is giving us the impression that the government wishes to undermine the judicial primacy in the appointments. Now, if the judiciary is doing this just because it had been, the objections had been raised, then it is a pushback. But the court would be doing itself a great disservice if it were to let that be or be seen to be its only reason. तो सिर्फ अगर इसीलिए कर रही है तो फिर ये गलत बात होगा या तो ये गलत लाइट में देखा जाएगा. Now, according to the author, what should the Supreme Court do or what can the judiciary do? So if the Thursday's move to go public is welcome, it is evidently selective. Why? Because they had come up with the reasoning of only mentioning a few names or giving the reason of only a few names on which the government had raised objections. Okay, why are you appointing this person in the as a judge, right? So the judiciary had come up with the collegium had come up with the reasoning, right? But then, according to the author, the reason should be given for all those names on which the objection had been raised by the government. उन सब नामों का जिन्हें ये कंसिडर कर रहे हैं कॉलेजियम उनके लिए रीजन देना पड़ेगा. दैट इज व्हाट द ऑथर सेज, नॉट ओनली ऑफ अ सिलेक्टेड फ्यू but of for all the names. So therefore the word comes that it is evidently selective. The work of completing it and imbuing it with the sheen of fairness remains to be done by the court. It must become a part of its institutional process. ये उसका process में ही आ जाना चाहिए. It should not just be a response or a reaction towards what the government, the objection raised by the government. Because if it was so that the government raised objection and the Supreme Court came up with a counter, let's see, this is the reason why we are appointing this person. So if it is just a one time matter, no. फिर सही नहीं है वो कोर्ट के लिए. According to the author, the collegium should actually take this into its institutional process only. वो system में ही लेके आना है. That is what the author says. Right? So I hope you have understood this. Now let us come to the subheading here. The collegium going public on government objections is welcome. तो ये plus sign हो गया. But selective इसका diversion हुआ. It needs to work to make it fair and institutional मतलब उसकी प्रोसेस में ही आ जाना चाहिए और फेयर होना चाहिए. तो इसने ये शीन ऑफ फेयरनेस कहा, उसे सिलेक्टिव कहा था, इट इज वेलकम कहा था. Right. So this was a combination of all the points. The first and the second paragraph actually coming up with a build-up, and the last paragraph stating the point effectively. Right. I hope now when you're reading, when you're listening to this recording also, you are able to understand and get that visual in the mind कि देखो क्या चल रहा है या कैसा चल रहा है. तो you are able to come to the main idea. I hope this is helping you. Come on, let's come to the vocabulary. Though we did not have many words today, I still took out a few words. ठीक है, देखो एक और तरीका होता है vocabulary enrich करने का. What usually you all do is you take out all the difficult words and then you write them and you come up with the meanings. Why can't you build it in a different manner also? Take the simple words and look up the words and come up with a better word for it. ये भी एक तरीका हो सकता है vocabulary enrich करने का. Right? So let's see what we can get today. So dark areas is, you can understand it as a phrase or an idiom. It is something that is not known, or not known मतलब mysterious हो जाएगा. तो dark areas होते हैं. ऐसे gray areas भी होते हैं. Gray areas भी मतलब जो neither black nor white होता है. ठीक है, इससे एक और idiom आ जाता है black and white. So if I want this in black and white means I want it clearly stated. So that is black and white. And if it is a dark area means I don't know anything about it. If it is, or it is a mysterious one, or if it is a gray area means there is some ambiguity there. I'm not very clear. The thing is actually vague. पूरा क्लैरिटी के साथ हमें नहीं समझ में आ जाता है तो वो ग्रे एरिया हो जाता है। डार्क एरिया मतलब वो मिस्टीरियस है, कुछ भी नहीं है उधर। Refuted. Now come to the next word. Refuted is actually many a times used in the questions for an RC, that is reading comprehension. Which of the following has been negated? ना critical reasoning में ज़्यादा use होता है ये. Which of the following has been refuted by the author? Which of the following is a negation or negated by the author? No, in this way. So refuted, negated, countered. Refuted का simple word हो जाता है refuse. तो refuse मतलब मना कर देना. ठीक है, अगर मना करेंगे इसका मतलब एक कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन है. सो यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड दिस वर्ड. एपेक्स ऑफ कोर्स यू ऑल नो, बट देन वी हैव दिस वर्ड एक्मे. समिट और हाईएस्ट पॉइंट तो समझ में आ जाता है सबको. पॉसिबल है कि ये वाला वर्ड नहीं आता है, एक्मे एंड जेनिथ. तो जेनिथ इज द टॉप मोस्ट पॉइंट, द हायर मोस्ट पॉइंट, हाईएस्ट पॉइंट. एंड इफ आई गिव यू द ऑपोजिट ऑफ जेनिथ, दैट इज नादिर. NADIR, that is the opposite. When I put a cross sign, it means a contradiction. It is the opposite. Yesterday I told you when I put a plus sign, that means इस word के बाद हम ये इस तरीके से phrase बना सकते हैं. If you remember, हमने किया था word voice. So you voice a concern, right? You voice an opinion, right? If you have not seen, kindly go back to yesterday's editorial discussion. Okay, next word is testy. Testy, as I said, touchy कर सकते हो आप आसानी से. मैंने कहा था raising objections वाला. Therefore, it is bad tempered, ill tempered, irritable. मतलब बार बार कोई हमारे खिलाफ ऐसा छोटी छोटी बात पे बोलता रहेगा तो irritate हो जाता है. उस हिसाब से हम testy word use कर सकते हैं. Another word for this is also, I'm giving a little different words now. Choleric we can use, right? Now see, these are like synonymous. They are not necessarily the exact meaning or interchangeable. No. So choleric, you can use the word. Then there is one word called petulant, though it is used in a different context, but yes, right. And another good word is cantankerous. राइट, अगर हमें कॉलरिक समझ में आ जाता है, पेट्रोलिन समझ में आ जाता है, कैंटेंक्रिस, ये थोड़ा सब इंटर रिलेटेड वर्ड्स होते हैं ये. वे somebody is raising objection, somebody is displaying disapproval, ऐसा बार बार परेशान करना, ये भी हो जाता है. बैड टेम्पर, शॉर्ट टेम्पर्ड, इल टेम्पर्ड, कुछ भी हो सकता है. इंटरवेंशंस यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड, दो आई स्टिल रिटन. इंट्रूजन वर्ड हो जाता है. मीडिएशन एंड इंटरफियरेंस, इंटरप्शन, ये भी लिख सकते हो. Right? So you have this prefix and this is the root word vent. Bolsters is support, strengthen. Another word for it can be consolidate. So bolstered, supported, strengthened, consolidated. Another word. See, when we start discussing the words, अपने आप दिमाग में आते जाते हैं. Consolidation के साथ एक और word आ जाता है, fortify. फोर्टिफाइड. ठीक है, फोर्ट यानी किला होता है, तो फोर्टिफाइड यानी उसे किले जैसा स्ट्रॉन्ग कर दो. कंसोलिडेटेड में वर्ड सॉलिड है तुम्हारे पास, तो कंसोलिडेट करना मतलब किसी को सॉलिड कर दो. सॉलिड मतलब शानदार, बिल्कुल शानदार इन द सेंस, यस इट इज वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग. So that is solid. Come on, next word, unfortunate. So unfortunate, as I said earlier that it was a simple word, सभी को समझ में आ जाता है. पर unfortunate का एक और वर्ड हम जो यूज कर सकते हैं, that is inopportune, ill-fated, ill-timed और fateful. Opportune related to opportunity, तो opportunity is the time जो कि सही मौका है. तो जो सही मौका होता है उसे एप्ट कहते हैं. ठीक है, टाइमली, वेल टाइम्ड, that is apt. Apt can come with appropriate also. Then we have the word imbuing. Imbue is filling, instilling or infusing, right? That is to bring in. उसे ये पूरा जो है उसको अपनी प्रोसेस में ही लेके आना है. सिर्फ वन टाइम एक्शन नहीं होना चाहिए. अकॉर्डिंग टू द ऑथर, द action of the court, the Supreme Court, should not be just because it had to come up with a counter with the government's expectation or the objection that it had raised, right? But according to the author, it should be brought in into the system only. So that is imbuing it. The last sentence था ना, imbuing it with the sheen of fairness. तो sheen का मतलब easy, very easy, shine के साथ relate करो. अब shine है तो gloss भी आ जाता है. The girls would know it better. What is the gloss? Luster, you have done. Luster, lustrous is shine. Effulgent, refulgent. Those in those classes where I've been taking vocabulary in the last few days, should go and check your sheets. Or a few might remember also, we have discussed this word effulgent, right? जब मैं ऑप्शंस वाले किए थे, ये फोर्थ ऑप्शन था, डी ऑप्शन था किसी सेकंड या थर्ड या फोर्थ क्वेश्चन में. तो इफल्जेंट चेक कर लेना. शाइनी, अब शाइनी से रेडियंस भी हम वर्ड कर सकते हैं. अगेन दिस इज अ वर्ड दैट यू मस्ट हैव हर्ड, नो? रेडियंट ग्लो. सो देयर वाज अ रेडियंस ऑन हिज फेस. वैसा शाइन. रिफल्जेंट इफल्जेंट दोनों का मीनिंग शाइन होता है, और दैट इज द शीन. सो a few simple words, but I've given you. जिसके लिए वो easy है तो मैंने तुम्हें कुछ difficult words भी दे दिए, और जिसके लिए ये ही difficult words हैं तो उनके पास तो आज बहुत सारे words हो गए. और ये मत सोचो कि ये सारे words हमें रट्टा लगाने या पढ़ने हैं, याद करने हैं, कुछ नहीं करना है. आप बस इनको note down these words in your own dictionary that you are creating, right? Listen to the discussion properly. When you write them down, when you look up the words, when you just go through your notebook again, you'll be able to remember them. And again, we'll get these words somewhere or the other, maybe in 10-15 days. कहीं ना कहीं तो वो हम उससे टकरा जाएंगे, और जब टकरा जाएंगे तो हमें याद आएगा कि हाँ, हम उससे मिल चुके हैं पहले, राइट? तो ऐसे ही है ना, अपने वर्ड्स को भी दोस्तों जैसा ट्रीट करा करो. सो नेवर टेक देम एज अ बर्डन देन. सो extra shots for today. Let's see what we have here. I've come up with 4 idioms today taken from that word dark. ठीक है, I gave it the dark area and gray area भी था एक idiom, वो भी दे दिया था. एक होता है dark horse. So he was a dark horse of the team. That means he was a person who had the skill or the ability or the potential, but the people around him did not know कि वो ये सब कुछ कर सकता है. मतलब कई बार ऐसे होता है, हम क्रिकेट का गेम देखें या हम हॉकी देखें या हम ये देखें टेनिस स्पोर्ट्स देखें, but whatever you see, right, there would be a person who is in the team. Suppose we take for example cricket only. There would be a person who at the last wicket and in the last few overs वो इतना अच्छा खेलता है कि यार उसकी वजह से टीम जीत जाती है. ठीक है, तो he was the dark horse. So nobody expected that he is going to perform so well, but at the end he did. So then we call him a dark horse. Then it was a shot in the dark, but I was able to crack the puzzle. मतलब अंधेरे में तीर चलाना, फ्लूक करना, वो हो जाता है. It was a shot in the dark. ठीक है, मतलब idioms ऐसे ही होते हैं. उसे literal meaning में समझो and then apply them contextually. Now I was in the dark, मतलब मैं अंधेरे में था. तो मैं अंधेरे में था, मैं अंधेरे कमरे में नहीं था. मैं अंधेरे में था मतलब I did not know anything about that matter. You can understand it well. Then he took a leap in the dark. अंधेरे में छलांग लगा देना. ठीक है. Now that means it's not a literal thing, but understanding it literally मतलब अंधेरे में छलांग लगाना. You don't know what is going to happen there, right? So taking a leap in the dark is you're unaware of the outcome. You do not think of the outcome, and then you say, okay, fine, जो होगा देखा जाएगा, तो चलो. Now let us do this. So you are taking a leap in the dark, right? I hope you have understood this. Now, please note down the idioms also, because somewhere or the other these are going to help you. The more you write, the more you listen, the more you read, you'll be coming across all these words and idioms. And I hope you understood also how to make the extract the central idea. So that's all for today. So thank you and see you in the next week. That's all.